Today is April 29th, and this week's agenda, we're going to still talk about our pre-list preparation plan. So today, bouncing off of last week we did residential. This week, we're going to talk about condominium listing preparation. So with this, we'll look at what documents you need to compile together. We'll talk about digging into the HOA, verifying the lending on these homes, talk about the resale certificate very briefly, and of course, getting the answers to the questions and knowing your own listing better than your sellers. So first things first, and this is with every single thing. So in every slide talking about listing preparation, I will say it again and again. We need to be ordering title. And why? Because we need to see the history and the history of the property that we're going to be listing. There's so much that the title report tells us, and we just have to look through this title report lens in order to put our listing together properly. The title report tells us everything we need to know to be accurate as far as home ownership, the chain of title, and I've actually found several, title errors that have been able to be corrected before the listing goes live because we do pull these title reports. So in order to have a valid listing agreement, again, we need to have the documents signed by the legal owners. Before getting our listing paperwork, we need to be pulling this all together and knowing who we're supposed to be talking to. So pull the title, research the property that you're going to put on the market. And then again, I just pulled up different ways the title could be vested in. Just make sure that your sellers are matching with the ownership that the title report has, as well as the listing paperwork. Keep in mind, we're going to verify for spouses. We're going to verify any other listed people and make sure everybody who needs to be on the paperwork is there. LLCs, corporations, and estates may have, or even a POA may have a specific signer. So make sure you're talking to escrow and actually the title company as well, if that's not the same person, about how your signing blocks need to look and who your legal signers are. And just keep in mind, a marriage with mid-ownership will require the spouse to be added to the paperwork. So let's talk about the property types and the legal description. We do want to verify property types. Even if we look at this building and we say, this is definitely a condo, we want to go in and we want to make sure it's a condo. We want to make sure it's listed as that. So I pulled up an example of a condominium exhibit A. So for a condo listing, it will state condo in the legal description. So either the legal description has to be attached to the listing or a condo declaration must be attached. And then remember, the purchase and sale agreement for condominiums is number 28. And if you look right here at Exhibit A, it says right here in the first line that it is in fact a condominium. Right here is a declaration. The declaration is basically the creation of the condominium development. So it would be able to be used in lieu of an Exhibit A legal description. So either of these are appropriate for attaching to a listing with condos. Next, we want to again verify the address. So the public records in the title report will have the address of the condo. Now, some of them have a pretty typical looking address. Some of them will have a number attached to this, like an apartment number. So that's why we want to go back in and just show exactly what it's supposed to look like. We want to make sure we have a physical address. And then, of course, verifying it to what you actually see in the pictures, as well as what that seller believes their home address is. Knowing the utilities and the general cost is also helpful. And this is with every listing, not just residential, but condominium and even land. So you may have to fill out a 22K to set up these utility transfers. A couple questions you may want to ask are maybe how much a typical bill is, where are the utilities coming from? And if you're in a condo association, a lot of times the HOA does cover some of these basic utilities. I've typically seen it with water, sewer, garbage, or sometimes they'll have a way to order gas through the company and then have it individually metered. In either way, you want to be watching for the utilities and make sure that you're accurately putting those in. Now, title companies do provide a list of utilities for your area if you've asked. And in condos, like I said, some of them are covered by the dues. Find out what the HOA covers when you're doing this sort of dive into utilities. Now, preparing your listing when there's an HOA involved, you should automatically, as soon as you see the word HOA, anticipate a request for some of this information, and not even just what the HOA covers or how much it costs, but the actual documents to be delivered. So have prepared 2 years of meeting minutes, 2 years of financials, all the bylaws and all the CC&Rs, just in case they're asked for. Now, some HOAs are incredibly hard to get a hold of. Sometimes they're difficult to access. So starting this process prior to your listing can be very helpful. You can also avoid the buyer adding this to a contingency if you've already done this before. Now, a resale certificate will need to be delivered to the buyer, and the buyer may request these items above. Now, the timing on that is going to be based on the front page of your purchase and sale agreement. But remember, all of this information is going to eventually need to be obtained anyway. This is an example of some of the HOA documents that you may see. This one right here specifically is just a profit and loss of their trust account for all their extra funds. You'll see bylaws for the HOA. I only took a snippet. This is several pages long, and some of these reports can be very, very lengthy. And then right here is just a financial breakdown of the HOA. A lot of times it's important when you're looking at maybe a condo or an HOA that's been, a little bit older, maybe some deferred maintenance might need to be done. Maybe there's something upcoming, an assessment that the buyer needs to be aware of. Now, lending guidelines on a condo can potentially be very simple, but there are some things that could come up. So as soon as you have a condo listing come up, I would speak with a lender and find out if there are any lending restrictions on the condo. If you have a condominium over commercial space, there are guidelines that need to go into place as far as how much of that space can be commercial versus how much can be the occupied residence. Get the lender to double check this before your listing. So when you're filling out your listing input sheet, you can accurately mark the financing type that the seller will be allowed to accept. Remember, when you put financing types into the listing input sheet, you are basically telling that buyer that if you come with an offer with any of these terms here, those are potentially acceptable terms for us. So don't get in a situation where you can't accept something because the wrong box was checked. Now, in a new construction, that's going to require what they call a public offering statement. All other sales will require a resale certificate. So I'm just going to very quickly kind of show the resale certificate. Now, it is Form 27. They do have 27 CIC, which is the Common Interest Community Resale Certificate. So a property management company is going to be pulling this resale certificate. And there is actually a law in place that says that it cannot exceed $275. However, if there are other fees involved in it, like a rush fee or whatever they want to list as a fee, they may be able to get around that. So just to kind of give your sellers a little bit of a heads up, this could cost close to $300 to get this resale certificate kind of put together. Now, the Form 27 resale certificate is not required as long as the association has their own resale certificate they used. So right here, I pulled up the Form 27 that we have with our Northwest MLS. Now, if you're representing a buyer, do not sign this before the seller has a chance to fill it out. And sellers, I would go ahead and just show the sellers this, even though it will not be filled out by them, it'll be filled out by the association. But just show them this so they know what they need to be able to kind of pull together. And maybe they might know some of these things. It's just good for that seller to know what's going to be asked for. Now, the Form 27 is for associations that were created before July 1st, 2018. And the common interest community ones are typically for associations that were created after July 1st, 2018. If you're confused about any of this and if the association is technically a common interest community or if it's just a standard, association, the title company will be able to help you decipher which is which. So just as a general rule of thumb, the associations that were originally created after July 1st, 2018 are going to probably be a common interest community association rather than a typical condo association. You're going to want to go ahead and ask all the questions when you talk about condos. Now, remember, the exterior of a condo doesn't necessarily belong to the homeowner, only the inside. So you may want to ask questions about things that you can do to the outside. Can you plant plants outside, attach anything to the exterior walls? Can you put up a fence? You'll want to find out if animals are allowed or what their animal rules are. The age of the roof would be important, the age of the water heater, and everybody seems to want to know why that seller is selling. Keep up with maintenance. So need I say more? A condo association is only responsible for the exterior. So make sure that there is no deferred maintenance inside that needs to be done. Some of these things can actually affect appraisal. So in order to prepare our sellers, we'll want to tell them to fix all leaks, all water intrusion and water damage. This is a big red flag for buyers. So anything damaged should be replaced. Also, ensure the water heater is strapped per code and not to be called out. And in this picture, a drip pan should be installed and visible. Make sure the appliances are at their fully functioning capacity. So if you have a dryer that's making squeaky noises, you'll want to make sure that they're the longevity of the appliances that you're transferring are at least suitable. Because remember, you are, as the seller, sorry, and I'm not going to say you, the seller is responsible for fully functioning appliances until the day of closing if they are fully functioning at the time the buyer sees them. So if they have a dryer, for instance, that's been making squeaky sounds and works intermittently, and they've represented that that dryer does work, then that dryer does need to fully work at the time of closing, as it is their responsibility to maintain that. Make sure the sellers know that they should be replacing their old smoke detectors and carbon monoxide alarms. This is not a choice, it's a Washington state law. So sellers are required to have carbon monoxide alarms and smoke alarms. So get them in there before the listing if they are not there already. Simple updates can help sell the house faster and for more money. So replacing old lighting and fresh paint do wonders. If you are working with a seller who has a condominium that might be a little bit older, there are some really inexpensive things that they can do to kind of refresh the look. We all know that staging helps immensely, but even something as simple as replacing some of these outdated light fixtures or even just hardware on cabinets, it makes a big difference and the return on investment is huge. Remember that we are the experts and we're going to help our clients sell for the most they can. And our goal for them is to look their very best on day one. So let's go be that expert for them.